Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Although this is, as we know it, the last episode of Wednesday Warfare because, as was announced this week, after WrestleMania, NXT is moving to Tuesday nights, no longer competing directly with AEW on Wednesdays. So with this change in the overall wrestling programming landscape, there's going to be some changes to the lineup here on this channel as well. If you've missed my posts about it on Twitter and Facebook the last couple of days, I am not sorry to announce that after WrestleMania, I am no longer reviewing Raw and SmackDown on a weekly basis. I've come to the conclusion that these shows and reviewing them, they're not really worth my time and energy anymore. And, I would get somebody to do it for me, but history has shown y'all don't like when I do that. It's basically me or nobody else. So that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. But I still plan on reviewing NXT and AEW every week. Those are my two favorite shows. So with this new lineup change of NXT moving to Tuesdays and AEW staying put, I'm happy to announce that after WrestleMania, Wednesday Warfare will be retired, and in its place, the return of Who Wore It Better. Very similar idea to Wednesday Warfare and, back in the old days when I was doing Raw and SmackDown, Mondays, Tuesdays. Similar vibe here. It's just basically a new name, and it's going to be stretched out over 2 nights instead of 1. So I'm happy to do that after WrestleMania. Hope y'all are excited for that. Sorry, no more Raw and SmackDown reviews, but again, they're just not worth my time anymore. But as always, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. NXT opens up with Roderick Strong versus Cameron Grimes. Last week, Grimes was trying to pitch to Roddy some new ideas for what they could do with the Undisputed Era's intellectual property now they've disbanded, but Roderick didn't take too kindly to that. So this match is happening here. Also, is it me? I just noticed it tonight. Is it me or is Roderick's theme very similar to Shayna Baszler's? Anyway, the match goes on, and these two work really well together, but the whole story is that Roderick is constantly distracted by just the vision of Undisputed Era stuff. Like they're at ringside and you see some fans in the front row wearing the UE shirts and he's in a trance and Cameron Grimes cuts him off. And then finally at the end, Grimes pulls out this UE armband from his trunks, and again, Roderick is just in a daze, Undisputed Era, my life, and that allows him to walk into the cave-in for Grimes to pick up kind of an upset victory here. I know the whole story is Roderick is questioning everything now because his 2 dads, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, are fighting and everything and the family's being broken up, but just the whole idea where it's just the vision of the Undisputed Era logo triggers him to the point where he cannot function in the ring. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that angle. We get a promo from Karrion Kross where he talks about his training regimen, getting ready for his fight for the title against Finn Balor next week. Then we get a promo with the disembodied voice of Walter, talking about how Tommaso Ciampa is a shell of the man he once was, and he will prove the mat is sacred when he defends the UK title against him at TakeOver. And then we see Santos Escobar, Raul Mendoza, and Joaquin Wilde standing in the ring, and Santos Escobar is issuing an open challenge. He says he runs the bingo here. Okay, whatever you say. Wade Barrett seems to go along with that phrase pretty well, but I was looking it up online, couldn't find out what the hell he meant. So anyway, open challenge here, and Tyler Breeze answers the call. Breeze says that Santos is entitled being here at NXT. Meanwhile, I worked my ass off to get here. That's right, Tyler, you worked your ass off to get there, leave, and then come back. It's a pretty solid match here. Breeze has got Santos reeling with a sharpshooter applied for a long time, but then Santos grabs the ropes. He ends up winning with the Phantom Driver soon after that. Then after the bell, you've got Joaquin and Raul beating up Tyler. In comes MSK to make the save. And then here comes the third element of that triple threat match next week for the vacant NXT tag titles, the Grizzled Young Veterans. They show up on the big screen and basically just mock both the other teams and say they're going to be winning the tag belts at TakeOver. I'm really looking forward to that match, by the way. Sucks that Danny Burch got hurt and the belts had to be vacated, but in its place we're getting what is on paper going to be a pretty rad title match. Backstage with The Way, Johnny Gargano's miffed that he has to defend the North American title at TakeOver Night 2 with only 24 hours notice of who he's going to be facing based on that Gauntlet Eliminator on Night 1, but Austin Theory is hopeful he's going to win the Gauntlet and everything and says, do you remember the finger poke of doom? And Johnny's like, yeah, that killed the business. And Austin's like, well, we're still here. He's like, oh, good point. And then Candice LeRae says that she and Indy Hartwell are going to show Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon what real champions look like in their next match here against Zeta Ramir and Gigi Dolan, who are AQA and Priscilla Kelly, formerly, making their TV debuts on this night. Zeta gets some fire in this matchup here, but as far as the outcome, what do you expect? Wicked stepsister to Zeta, followed by a springboard elbow drop by Indy for the baddies to win. And then afterward, you get Candice on the mic challenging the tag team champions to a match. And then out come Ember and Shotzi in their tank, and they accept the challenge. They fire a rocket at Indy in the ring, and that's where we leave off. So we'll have that match for the women's tag tag belts at TakeOver. And then backstage, we see the first of what turns out to be many confrontations on the night between the women's champion, Io Shirai, and her challenger for next week, Raquel Gonzalez. Every time Io confronts Raquel, though, and tries to fight her, she ends up paying for it in increasingly severe ways, but we'll get to that as the night goes on. And meanwhile, elsewhere, we see Roderick Strong. He's got his bags. He's leaving. He says he's leaving. All of it is what he said here, which leads me to believe he's going to play a strong role in the outcome of the Cole O'Reilly match for next week. Our next matchup sees Zoey Stark versus the aforementioned Gonzalez. And, Zoey looks good here. She fights up to Dakota Kai at one point, hits a nice twisting blockbuster off the top. Really impressive here, and she ends up getting beat with a one-arm powerbomb. Zoey looked strong in defeat, I guess, but I'm confused by the booking of her, because she starts off with all this, fanfare at her first match. She gets this big hype package and everything, and then she's put in these big matches with names, which is good on paper, and she ends up, I don't really expect her to win against Io Shirai or Raquel Gonzalez, but she's been losing a lot more lately than she was winning at the beginning. And I would think that if you want to make her look good, you have her win more matches. It doesn't have to be against big names, just have her win some more matches. And then after that match, though, Io Shirai comes back out to fight, but Gonzalez beats her up again. It just keeps getting worse for the women's champion. There's a dog running loose in the Performance Center. We see a couple of segments where the dog's running around, and then the last one, the dog walks up to this pair of legs. You don't see the body it belongs to, but we see a little note on the screen saying, see you April 13th, which is the Tuesday debut for NXT. And from what I could glean on social media, that's Taya Valkyrie's dog we saw running around, so that seems to be a tease for her NXT debut. I'm excited about that. And then we see Kushida being interviewed backstage about the Battle Royal air tonight. Pete Dunne cuts him off and says that he's the best technical wrestler, prove him wrong. Very Benoit-esque promos Dunne's cutting lately. But basically Kushida says, I'll see you in the Battle Royal. And then we get the Prime Target hype package for Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. I have loved the Prime Target stuff they've been doing on NXT for the last year or so. I think they're some of the best, most well done hype packages for feuds I've seen in quite a while in WWE. And these guys knocked it out of the park again with this one. They're talking about the history between them, meeting in 2009, being friends, being opponents over the years. And then, of course, they talk about the Undisputed Era stuff with this saccharine music and glowing vignette effects around them. The good old days, the salad days of the UE. And Kyle talks about how he has grown as a person in the last 3 years, while Cole's the same piece of shit he's always been. And Cole says O'Reilly's a lapdog. It all wraps up with what we saw last week, where Regal has them sign the Hold Harmless agreement for their unsanctioned match. Yeah, like I said, this was a really well done, really well edited, really well paced highlight package talking about their history and all the animosity that's built at this point and their motivation and everything. This is really well done. We're supposed to get Kayden Carter and the returning KACY CATANZARO against the team of Tian Sha. That's supposed to be Xia Li and Mei Ying, but the lady on the throne does not go to the ring, so it's 2-on-1 for a while. We get this double down with KACY and Xia, and that prompts Kayden to leave the ring and try to confront Mei Ying on the stage, but she gets through the Tongan death grip and then blows some smoke in her face, and she just passes out. And then that allows Xia to hit a big spinning knee attack to win the match here. And so a lot more questions and answers here. We see a little bit of a glimpse of what Mei Ying can do. I was kind of surprised. I was so confused from the announcers earlier. I was like, wait, is it a tag team match? Who's the other person? Is it the lady on the throne? Why is she not wrestling? And so they're gonna milk that one for a while. And I guess we're gonna see just what happens down the line. But it's definitely, again, I maintain this. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I remain very intrigued by the Tian Sha storyline. Not sure where Boa fits into all this, because he's kind of a third wheel, I feel, in this. It's been all Xia Li the entire time, and Boa, even from the beginning, was kind of like this, side character, didn't really factor in much. Io Shirai confronts Raquel Gonzalez again. She's thrown through a wall. Then we get Tommaso Ciampa cutting a very good promo here, where he really shifts gears, because first, the whole time, he's holding this necklace that he was given by his wife and his child before he went into neck surgery, and he talks about sometimes we need to be reminded of who we are. And he flips this switch and stands up and starts yelling about, he may not be the same guy he was in 2018, the NXT champion and everything, but he can still be that guy. And he wants to show Walter just how badass he can be at TakeOver, and says it's a very long, painful fall from the top. Buckle up. Great promo here. And then to counteract the Karrion Kross promo we saw earlier, we get one from Finn Balor talking about his training regimen, how his stamina is better than anybody else's, and how once they're in the deep water, Karrion will drown in their title match. In your main event is the Gauntlet Eliminator qualifying battle royal, in which the last 6 men in the ring qualify for the Gauntlet match at TakeOver, and the order of elimination in this battle royal will determine the order of entry for the Gauntlet match itself. It's just basically a big collection of some of the more notable couple mid-card guys in NXT right now. And first you see Isaiah Swerve Scott and Leon Ruff fight before the bell rings. As the match goes on, Theory is kind of a dumbass and gets himself eliminated when he tries to kip up. He's on his back on the floor. You see Kushida and Pete Dunne eliminate each other while Kushida's got the arm hold on Pete. And then we find out after the commercial break they're going to be fighting, having a match at TakeOver. The final 6 people in the match, the ones who qualify for the gauntlet, are Bronson Reed, Dexter Lumis, LA Knight, Cameron Grimes, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Leon Ruff. Your final 3 are Knight and Lumis and Grimes, who tries to bribe the 2 of them to get out of the match, but it's not so lucky for him. He gets eliminated. So down to Knight and Lumis, and after some clever moves around the ropes, Knight ends up winning the match. He eliminates Dexter Lumis, who, by the way, for the most of the match is not doing anything. He just stands still and watches the whole time, which I thought was pretty entertaining. So LA Knight wins the match up here, and he jaw jacks with Johnny Gargano at ringside because he's the last person in the gauntlet. And so then as that happens, Io Shirai comes out once again, and she calls out Raquel Gonzalez. They fight some more. There's a whole lady pull-apart brawl. I can't tell who any of these ladies are when they're not in their gimmick, but they're all trying to do the pull-apart here. And then Io does a big dive onto Raquel and half the ladies who are doing the pull-apart and everything, and she stands tall to end the show. And what a great arc for Shirai here. I mean, like, it was very reminiscent to what happened a few months ago on SmackDown, and I complained about this then when Kevin Owens got beat up like every other segment by like Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. I'm like, man, he sure looks dumb. And I don't think he had like the positive outcome at the end of the show that like Io did in this one. And that's the big key difference here. I questioned, Kevin's character. I thought that whole for Kevin Owens, it didn't look good for him, but afterward I understood what they were trying to go with it. Here with Io, it's much more clear. The fact she came back at the end and kind of took down the challenger after so many attempts was nice to see. And it does, she still looks like she's in peril, but she's ultimately very gutsy and tenacious. So I think they did a really good job like building that particular matchup throughout the course of the night. Dynamite begins this week with Christian Cage in his AEW in-ring debut and his first proper singles match in 7 years against Frankie Kazarian. I am very excited about this one. The match starts off kind of slow, but really picks up by the end. Christian can get a lot of mileage out of very few bumps. So the first few bumps he takes, he's selling the dickens out of those things. Like a simple backdrop on him, like he just took so much out of him. In the end, he ends up beating Kazarian with a kill switch after a very hard-fought match. And this was great. Like I said, it really picked up by the end. Christian has not seemed to lose a step. I just love this match. We see a Darby Allin promo on Big Money Matt Hardy saying, all the money in the world cannot buy respect. I don't respect you and your money doesn't mean shit to me. We see him and Sting like dumping a bunch of money off a bridge, and then like they set a bunch of money on fire. And then we see a Jade Cargill promo later on where she talks about how she looks like money, she acts like money, she makes that money, she is money. And then we see our next match is an exhibition match, an unsanctioned exhibition between Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall, the Nightmare Family / Factory. Those guys are all surrounding the ring. Arn Anderson is the special guest referee for this one. The story of this match is that QT is taking this a lot more seriously than Cody appears to, because he's acting very aggressive and attacking Cody's injured arm. And meanwhile, Cody has a couple of opportunities to put QT away, but refuses to for whatever reason. QT powders out of the ring, gets back in, decks the referee, Arn Anderson, and seems to immediately regret it. He bolts out of the ring, and all the other Nightmare Factory people are just yelling at him. Then all of a sudden, all these trainees and the young lions and everything just en masse jump all the veterans. So the Gun Club is laid out, Dustin Rhodes is laid out, and of course he's wearing a white shirt, so of course he bleeds. They beat up Lee Johnson as well. They beat up Cody some more. Finally, and QT is just directing traffic for all these guys, all the young folk. And then finally, Red Velvet gets involved and prevents QT from bashing Cody's head in, and that's where that segment ends. And man, that was a great twist. You could see coming that QT was going to defect or leave the Nightmare Family, but I didn't think he was going to be taking his own stable of guys and kind of he brainwashed these young guys from the Nightmare Factory and stuff. I love that angle. It's so cool. I mean, we know so little about those folks, but I think we're going to get to know them more, especially in Dark Elevation and Dark Regular Height. The fact that they did that to the guys like Cody and Dustin and the Gun Club, it immediately makes QT and those guys very credible. So it gives them a big boost, and hopefully they can take that and run with it and make it something very interesting. Well, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky are a tag team now. They're cutting this promo where it starts out with single shots of the two of them and how they want respect and they're not getting what they want. And then we see the two of them in the shot together and that they'll take what they want. I'm a bit disappointed by this development because, you know, Ethan Page came in as a solo guy. Scorpio has spent months on the singles track and just turned heel. Like, this feels like a step backward, especially for Scorpio. But if this can lead to something good for them, I guess it's worth it, but I just feel the tag team scene right now, tag team / stable scene in AEW is so jam-packed. Is there going to be room for them? Like, I don't know. I think I'd much rather see both those guys as singles guys, if I'm being honest. Red Velvet's interviewed backstage about what happened earlier, but she gets maybe 5 words out before Jade Cargill jumps her and reminds her she is that bitch. And then we see a Jon Moxley promo where he's just pissed off at the world right now and everything in it. Talks about CEZAR Bononi and says he's got a good future in this business. He'll make a lot of money in this business if I don't kill him first. We see Moxley taking on Bononi up next in singles action. I know I don't watch the other programming, the Darks and the Elevations, so somebody fill me in why Bononi is in a team with Ryan Nemeth and JD Drake. What a motley looking crew this is. Like, wasn't Bononi just teaming with Peter Avalon like 2 weeks ago? Like, what happened there? So anyway, this is some good back and forth, and Moxley looks strong here. He basically thwarts JD Drake attacking him and Nemeth attacking him, gets Bononi in a rear naked choke to win by submission. So yeah, Moxley looking strong as he really should. It's time for a message from Team Taz, where Taz says, "No doubt about it, Cole, everything's fine here with Team Taz." And then you've got Ricky Starks kind of egging on Brian Cage, putting him on the spot about their 6-man tag they had on Dark the previous night. And Cage gets kind of pissed about it, but Taz is, trying to be the peacemaker, saying, "No doubt about it, Cole, everything's fine here, Team Taz." It's time for MJF to present his gift to the Pinnacle. So they are in what appears to be the former locker room of the Inner Circle, and MJF says that we're going to have a personal stylist now. We're going to have an interior decorator come in and spruce the place up, and we're going to get rid of the stench in this bathroom. He opens the door, and the Inner Circle's just there waiting for them. MJF just a beat and just close the door, calmly says, "We gotta go," which is a great delivery there, great timing. He opens the door out, but Jake Hager stands in his way, and they all has fight. The Inner Circle is back from their beatdown, and they all just beat the hell out of the Pinnacle and everything. Dax at one point is just gushing blood. I don't know what happened there, but boy, he was bleeding like a stuck pig by the end of this thing. And Cash Wheeler was thrown into an ice bucket. Why there's all these couches surrounding an ice bucket, who knows? But the big coup de grace of this segment is Chris Jericho beating up MJF, giving him a swirly in the toilet, and then echoing his famous line from 2008 when he turned heel on Shawn Michaels, saying the worst is yet to come, and he slams MJF to the obscenely expensive drink cooler that's in their locker room. And that's pretty much where it ends. Inner Circle gets some of the revenge against the Pinnacle for what happened. I thought it was a great segment. Just again, the timing of everything when the Inner Circle showed up in the doorway of the bathroom, and then the fight. It was just a very good visual experience, and it was just kind of cathartic to see what MJF was put through. We get an interview with the Young Bucks backstage, and then Don Callis interrupts them. He has a one-on-one with Matt Jackson, basically saying, what the Bucks did last week was they broke Kenny Omega's heart because they left him, they left him high and dry. They refuted the Too Sweet, and then they also left him bleeding in the same night. So, reiterating that Kenny picked his friends in AEW over making more money in Japan and everything. Finally, Don just slaps Matt in the face. Matt grabs Don, but doesn't do anything. He just lets him go after a couple of beats. And Don, now feeling more emboldened, saying, "You're pathetic. You don't stand for anything. You're the worst." And he walks off, and Matt looks very conflicted. So more of the whole, will he, won't he, will he attack his friend and everything. But I was wondering, what does him not beating up Don Callis prove? Because I would feel like if you're still conflicted about it, at least beat up Don, because that Callis is kind of the reason that Kenny is like this, but we don't get that quite yet. Then it's time for a 6-man tag as Omega and the Good Brothers take on the Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid. Alex Abrahantes still translating for Penta in their pre-match promo, which confused me because, wait a minute, the Luchas are definitely the good guys in this matchup here, but wasn't Abrahantes and Penta to a greater extent playing heel for the last few weeks? What's going on with that? This is a very fast-paced, exciting matchup. There's a triple super kick to Omega in the first minute of this matchup here. Ultimately, Laredo Kid is taken out with one winged angel for Omega to win for his team. And then afterwards, they're celebrating. We see Jon Moxley, back on stage. He wanted some revenge for what they did to Eddie Kingston. And so he stands there. Then the Young Bucks show up to flank him, and the three of them storm the ring. The baddies leave, and that's that. That's the closest we've gotten so far to the Young Bucks kind of lashing out at Omega and the Good Brothers this whole time. And so it's a small step. I want to see some physicality. I want to see them, like, you know, hit that breaking point and snap. But I'm pretty sure it's the first time they've gone directly after Omega and the Good Brothers here. I know I missed last week, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time. So we'll get that physicality at some point. But it's you know, it's slow and steady wins the race, I guess, is their line of thinking for the storyline. We get a promo from Dr. Britt Baker and Rebel, where Britt plugs Dark Elevation and talks about Thunder Rose is going to be on the show, and says that the biggest win of Thunder's career against Me in the Lights Out match technically never happened because it was unsanctioned. Ooh, what clever logic by the heel there. And so she says she's going to be the one who holds down the women's division. Pretty solid heel promo. And speaking of the ladies, our next match sees Nyla Rose and the Bunny versus Ty Conti and Hikaru Shida, the women's champion. The Dark Order are outside the ring to counteract the rest of the Matt Hardy Empire, who's, of course, they have Butcher, Blade, and Bunny and all that stuff. So this match, the story in this match here to me is Conti, who has been really having a great showcase the last couple of weeks on TV. It's crazy to see how much she has grown and how much she adds to the women's division already, when she was really underused, just unused pretty much at NXT for so long before they let her go. I think she's having a really good run right now, and early in her run in AEW. Eventually the Dark Order and Matt's pack start brawling on the outside, and then Hikaru dives onto them and they don't budge, but then Ty dives onto them and they all fall down. The Bunny's got a kendo stick, which Aubrey Edwards laser focused on Vicky Guerrero on the apron because she does not see her holding the kendo stick, does not notice when she hits Ty with it in order for her to win, hits down the rabbit hole to win the match for her team. I thought it was a pretty good match here, but yeah, seeing like Aubrey, it's so funny to see referees just like willfully ignore the blatant shit that's like clearly in their like, you know, peripheral vision. I would be a terrible referee because my instinct would always be to go, oh, what's that over there? The Jurassic Express cut a promo on Bear Country, and their match next week is a direct tie-in, or it's sponsored by Godzilla vs. Kong, which, let's face it, is the real battle on Wednesday night. And then our main event sees Arcade Anarchy with Miro and Kip Sabian taking on the best friends, Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. And they really went all out with this one, so to speak. Really got all these arcade cabinets surrounding the ring. You've got an air hockey table, you've got a prize table, you've got a whack-a-mole game, all these different things that really recreate the feeling of the genuine arcade. And this is a big old Wild Weapons brawl. Kip is thrown through the whack-a-mole machine, and Orange, like, he bops him with the mallet a couple of times. They get the weapons off the prize table and everything. There's like a chair for 20,000 tickets. There's a trash can lid for 15,000. At one point, Chuck takes down this teddy bear, which is a teddy bear chant. He rips it open to reveal a bunch of Legos, which I've been told hurts worse to take a bump in than thumbtacks. And there's a big, like a couple spots in the Legos. At one point, Kip powerbombs Chuck into them, or maybe it's Orange, but like that should hurt both of them because Kip's doing a sit-out powerbomb, so he's sitting ass first on these Legos. Penelope Ford interferes and takes Orange to Dick Kick City, and then suddenly they make their way to the claw machine, and who pops up from the stuffed animals? It's Chris Statlander, making her return on TV for the first time in months since her knee injury. She pops out of that thing and beats up Penelope, hits this big driver off the apron through the air hockey table. Samir's beating up both Orange and Chuck, and they're crawling up the ramp, and all of a sudden in the distance you see these two headlights. And what's pulling up? It's Sue's van. And who's in Sue's van? Sue's son Trent. Holy shit, also back from injury. Now the best friends are in full force, and they take the fight to Miro and Kip. It ends when Chucky T hits the running power slam off the apron to Sabian through a big table platform thing for the best friends to win. And Where Is My Mind by the Pixies plays, and we get the big hug, give the people what they want. Then we do it again with Chris Statlander. Just a great feel-good way to end this show. And this match was fantastic. It was so much fun to watch, and the arcade motif, I think, really sold it for me. And, you know, not quite the same match as the parking lot brawl with Santana and Ortiz last year, but this one's still very entertaining in its own way, and was just, yeah, I walked out of the show with a big smile on my face after watching it. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite. And I gotta go with AEW this week, folks. Such a much more fun show than NXT. It was a strong show as NXT. I thought they had some good build for TakeOver next week. In particular, the Prime Target package for Cole and O'Reilly, and Io Shirai and Raquel Gonzalez's whole arc. I loved the moral victory that Io got at the end after being denied again and again and again all night long. I give major props to how that was accomplished. And the gauntlet match, or the Battle Royal, I should say, for the gauntlet was also really well done. fun. With AEW, I really liked, QT Marshall's defection with the Nightmare Factory folk. Christian Cage's first match in 7 years was a lot of fun. The Inner Circle Pinnacle stuff, and of course Arcade Anarchy, which is so much fun from start to finish. I have a couple things I question about it, like the whole lukewarm, whatever the hell they're doing with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and why are they putting Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in as a tag team when I think they could do so much better in singles work. But on the whole, I think AEW is just a fantastic show, and there was a lot of stuff that put a smile on my face. NXT was good, but AEW is better. But what did you think of NXT and AEW this week? Let me know in the comment section below. Heads up next week, because of the different format, because it's TakeOver next week and it's 2 nights. On Wednesday, I will be doing an AEW review by itself, and then on Thursday, I'll be giving you a review of night 1 and 2 of TakeOver Stand and Deliver. So keep your eyes open for that. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.